I want to welcome everyone to Passionate World Radio. This is Jeanne-white at Social Connections, and we are doing a series for a lot of caregivers that are either in the beginning of stages or the end stages of caring for a loved one that's been diagnosed with, Alzheimer or some form of dementia. And today on the line, I have Heather Oglesby. And Heather, I want to welcome you to the show.
Thank you so much. Glad to be
here.
Yes.
Yes. I know it's not an easy situation to talk about, Heather, but I understand you're the caregiver for your mother, and can you at least give a little background about how long it took to get a diagnosis and what has presently happened for you and your mother?
Sure. I'm going on a little over 3 years of being my mom's full-time caregiver. She is diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and it kind of happened kind of dramatically. My husband and I had moved actually away from her 3 years ago to take a job here in Atlanta, Georgia, and she was living in Pennsylvania. And when I left the area, I was getting some strange calls from her. At that time, she was about 62, and I would get calls that were asking for money, to pay bills, and then she'd call me back the next day and ask me for the same amount of money to pay more bills. She would call me several times on a holiday to wish me, Happy Thanksgiving or Merry Christmas, back to back to back, and I kept thinking, what is going on here? Like, we just talked, but she was 62, so never did I think at all she had Alzheimer's disease. My mom was low income. She did not have health insurance, so she was not getting preventative care. She was actually denied health care through the Affordable Care Act because she was too poor. And then the state did not expand Medicaid to her population, her age group. So she fell in that kind of insurance gap where she didn't have insurance through any kind of system or system of care. And so she wasn't getting, regular blood work and screenings, and I think that's really important, especially when you're trying to catch dementia early. So we were getting these strange calls, and I was helping her financially from afar and trying to problem solve some things. And it lasted about 10 months when I got a call from one of her friends who said, I'm really concerned about your mother. She actually was cleaning her home, and she was leaving cleaning supplies in strange places, and she would show up late, or she would not clean and leave, and just a lot of confusion and disorientation. The next thing I know, I get a call from my mom, and she's been evicted from her house and was living with a friend, staying with a friend, but she could not articulate really what happened. All she kept saying was she was evicted and she was staying with a friend. And I was trying to find out what happened because she had been, in this place. It was like a cottage. She was renting it for like 20 years. And I know the owners, and I think they, treated my mom really well, and I could not figure out why she would be evicted. So try to get some more information from the people she was now staying with, and they said they could not figure out what happened, but that my mom then stopped coming home at night, and they didn't know where she was, and they would go out looking for her, and she had lost all this weight. And when I would call her cell phone and ask what is going on, she said, oh, I'm fine. I'm just sleeping in my car. And she was sleeping in her car in parking lots of Walmart and Target and laundromat with all the things that she had from the so-called eviction, very disoriented. And I was like, Mom, I can put you up in a hotel. I don't understand what's happening. I tried to get her, use my points and put her in a hotel, and she didn't want to go. She wanted to stay and sleep in her car. That was for about a week until somebody found her and took her to a homeless shelter. At that point, I got the call from my mom, and she said, I'm in a homeless shelter in Pennsylvania, and she didn't know what else to say, and I was just, I didn't know
devastated.
what. Yeah, it happened so quickly. I don't want to say deteriorated so quickly. The impact of what was happening with her was quick. And so I had to go to my job. I worked full time. At that time, I was 42 years old. Worked full time. My husband and I took weeks off from work, and I basically drove up 10, 12 hours to get to her. And she couldn't even tell me where the shelter was. I had to find the shelter. And when I got there, she was standing in the doorway, and she was emaciated. She was sick. She had pneumonia. She had expired inhalers. She dirty, filthy. She smelled, and I just didn't know what was going on with my mother. I was like, what happened? And looked over at her car, and just things stashed from her house, whatever she could take, and it was like old books and dirty clothes and food bags in the back of the car. She was homeless. And my mom was so high functioning, worked her butt off her whole life, and I just didn't know what was going on. And at that time, she was 64 by the time we picked her up, and I was like, this isn't Alzheimer. Like, this isn't dementia. That's not where my mind was going. I was like, well, maybe she's depressed. Maybe she's going through depression. I didn't know.
Yeah, you were thinking of all different ways and not thinking about the person, yes. So that must have been devastating for you and your husband.
Oh, devastating. You know, one of the things, she had a car and she didn't have any paperwork. So we couldn't find a title. Her car was old. We couldn't bring her car down 10, 12. It wouldn't make it. For 12 hours to Georgia, and so we ended up dumping everything out of the car, going through everything right there, in the parking lot of the homeless shelter. We donated the car to a mechanic that she knew, and I basically wrote a note, as soon as I find the title, it's yours. I'm like, you're in crisis mode.
Yeah.
And so, we looked for paperwork. We couldn't find paperwork, and I was like, at that point, forget it. We'll figure it out when we get her home.
Right.
So we took her to a hotel and showered her, bathed her because she was filthy. We took her out to an outlet store, and we took her into, I'll never forget this, we took her into Old Navy, and I said, Mom, I'm getting you a whole new wardrobe. You got to get stuff that fits you. This stuff is like 20 years old. You need something that fits you. She was 100 pounds, around 100 pounds.
Oh, my goodness. Yes.
And she was in a size 2 at Old Navy. And I was like, oh, my goodness, what happened to Mom? I mean, it was just you're in shock. And so we brought her down to Georgia and started trying to unravel what services we could get her in Georgia with not having any of her paperwork, not having any documentation, no birth certificate, no. And then I also had to try to apply for Medicaid because she wasn't on Medicare yet. So we were paying out of pocket a cost to get her evaluated for just not her mental status, but just for her pneumonia and her what we now know is COPD, a bad case of COPD. We thought it was just asthma. Trying to get her inhalers. So we had several months where we were just paying out of pocket everything just to get her physically well, trying to get her to eat because she wasn't eating. And so it was a huge financial hit on top of me taking a lot of time off from work.
Of course.
And so I began the financial piece is huge. I mean, it's just, and we are not, we're middle income, and we're not in poverty in any kind of way, my husband and I. But at this point, we're like 3 years later, barely scraping by, caring for my mom. And so I started going through the state Medicaid process here in Georgia, which was a nightmare. They don't educate you. They don't inform you. They don't tell you how to apply. You just apply the best you can. Denied. My mom was only bringing in under $700 a month between Social Security and a small pension. And she was denied Medicaid because in the state of Georgia at that time, if you were at her age, you could not bring over like $313 a month in.
Well, they almost make you feel that you're absolutely, truly poor by the time that you can do this.
Yeah. And she had no assets. She didn't own a home. We had donated her car. She didn't have anything. So she literally, that $700 a month was all she had, and she was denied Medicaid. And so I went through probably about 5 months of appeals and reapplying till finally I found someone who said, if you apply for SSI for your mother, because the federal income limit at that time was $731, she will qualify for Medicaid in 26 states in this country. That's what is the policy. If you qualify for SSI, you automatically qualify for Medicaid. The priority and the reason I really wanted her to get on Medicaid was I was going after a Medicaid waiver program that would support community-based programs where I could go back to work. I have to work. And I couldn't care for her full-time. Yeah, and I couldn't afford to pay for a full-time caregiver at $20 an hour, 8 hours a day. Yeah. 7 days a week. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's expensive. I mean, if you deal with your expenses and your mom's expenses,
yes.
It's crippling.
It's huge.
It really is.
It's
crippling.
Huge.
Yeah.
It's crippling. I researched adult daycares, and they were $67 a day. So I used her monthly Social Security check and said I can send her once a week or twice a week. And I begged my job for telework days. And, I mean, it was a lot of negotiating while trying to figure out systems of care. So in the meantime, I applied for SSI, went through a whole process, actually had to go through an appeal process with SSI as well, but we finally got it. And we got Medicaid. And so I was able to apply for the Medicaid waiver program, which in turn afforded me Medicaid services. I wouldn't say they're the best. We started with adult daycare, which was a logistical nightmare. And we got some Medicaid transportation and some in-home support. And I have, as she has declined, I have been my own kind of case manager, trying to assess our own home situation and what is available through this Medicaid waiver program. Nobody's going to do this for you. You have to do it, and you have to advocate for it, and you have to gain the knowledge. No one's going to give you this information.
So you just have to gain the knowledge for it. So one of the things I see here, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that could know, if 26, did you say 26 states have SSI?
Well, no, all states, you're eligible for SSI. It's federal. So SSI is a federal.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. It's a federal program.
Yes, it's federal funding. Yeah, federal program. Medicaid is federal dollars as well, but it goes to the states for the states to control it. So they can make their own decisions on who gets Medicaid, how much. They can set their income limits. They can't do that with SSI. So there are 26 states, I think the last time I looked at this, 26 states who have the policy that if you qualify for SSI, you automatically qualify for Medicaid, and you don't have to go through Medicaid to apply. So that was my big aha moment for us because the income qualifications for SSI was higher. There are some things you have to do, and you got to know how to apply for SSI. It's a trick too, which we learned, but that's how we got Medicaid. It wasn't directly through our community Medicaid provider. So
yes. Did you when you were researching? Were you researching on the Medicaid or Medicare government internet websites?
Yeah, I was Google.com is my best friend.
I love Google.
I love Google. How can you not have Google? Because nobody's going to tell you this. And systems do not know it. We were taking my mom to doctors' offices, and they didn't know anything about Medicaid or Medicaid programs or Medicaid waiver programs. This is something I found out about.
Is it Medicaid or Medicare?
Medicaid.
Medicaid. Oh, I don't think anyone, even I have it's like a blur, really.
It is really complicated, and it's state by state, right? So you have to research state by state, whatever state you live in. You have to go on their sites and really look at their policies, what available waiver programs there are for the disabled population, for the elderly population, what are those income limits, how do you actually apply for it? It's very important, the calculations. Even though it looks like the income limit fits, they do additional calculations behind the scenes. So there's a way you apply, right? So through the process of being denied a lot and appeals and researching on my own is how I learned how to access Medicaid and Medicaid waiver programs. And for me, in my situation with my mom and her income, it was going through SSI. So that's how I learned about it. Nobody told me how to do it. I accessed every organization possible. I called the Alzheimer's Association 5 different times, and they were not helpful. They did not know about systems of care and Medicaid and Medicare and SSI and SSDI and Social Security. They didn't know anything about that. I called the Office of the Aging in my state and was funneled through so many different people and left voicemails. I was put on wait list. There is no easy access to care in caring for your loved ones who are disabled or elderly. You have to find this information. There's no centralized system. There's no centralized person. This is piecemealed across the state and the federal government, and you have to go find it and figure it out.
Oh, so they make it extremely difficult. It's because it's such a complex situation, issues. And then you have to make sure you're caring for your loved one. You're watching the behaviors. You're watching the decline. You're advocating in doctor's offices. You're demanding things. It took us, of course, once we got Medicaid, I was like asking her primary care doctor. He thought he diagnosed her with depression and put her on an antidepressant. And I said, something is really wrong. It's her memory. It's her disorientation. He kept saying it's depression. At that point, probably about 3-4 months in, I asked for a CT scan. I said, I want a CT scan. Something is going on. And so they did CT scan her brain, and it came back with something that looks like, because they can always say it appears like Alzheimer's. And then we were referred to go to a neurologist, which was another problem because neurologists in this state do not accept Medicaid. So we were turned away at the door. So even though at that point my mom had Medicare, Medicaid, we would make these appointments, and we were like, oh, we take Medicare, but we do not take Medicaid. We can't see you. And so then I was running into like, holy crap, how am I going to get a neurologist for my mother? And someone told me teaching hospitals cannot deny Medicaid. So I called Emory Emory University, and I got referred to a neurologist that had a 3-month wait list. Wow, 3 months.
So it was a 3-month wait list to get in to see a neurologist for testing. And so we waited, kept her on the antidepressants because the primary care doctor did really nothing with the potential Alzheimer's, the results from the CT scan. We got in to see the neurologist. They put my mom through rigorous testing, paper pencil testing, walking on an electronic pad, all kinds of memory testing, and then we had to wait 3 months later to get back in to get the diagnosis.
Wow.
And we got the diagnosis.
It was a really long process for you and your mother.
Yes, it is. And she's young. Right. And she's young. She was young to me at 65 then by the time she got the diagnosis, and she had just lost all her independence, her financial. She wasn't driving. She was in a strange state. This was a huge loss for her and a huge gain of responsibilities for me and my husband that I wasn't prepared for. Who would be prepared for at 42 to deal with these systems of care and dementia in your parent? No,
it's not. It doesn't happen. I mean, I know it happens, but you're just not prepared for it. You have no idea prepared. What you're going to be doing.
No. And so in the meantime, within all that first year, 10 months after bringing my mother down here, I got a call from a private investigator from Florida looking for the family of Paul Oglesby, which was my father, who I hadn't seen in 20 years. And he was calling from a hospital, and he had passed away. Oh. And I was, he was like, is this Heather Oglesby? And I was like, sure is. And he said, well, your father has passed away. We need to know what you want done with the body.
Oh, my God.
And I was like,
what?
Yeah, in 10 months.
What do you do?
Yeah. Well, I was looking at my mom, like, across the table, and I'm like, is this really happening? Like, I was in the throes of, like, good marriage. We just bought a house, and I had moved down for a job, and it was like all of a sudden my world had turned upside down. And I just looked at my mom going, this is crazy. So I ended up having to coordinate his remains, sending him over to a funeral home, ended up holding a memorial in Florida, took my mom down, met, all his friends and people at the church, and had to process that and do that. And when I got back, and, we talk a lot about caregiver, like, caregiver support or caregiver taking care of yourself, right? Which sometimes I laugh at. I'm like, okay, tell me how to do that. I'd like you to tell me how to do that.
How is that going to happen? But
how is that going to happen in all this?
It's because you're in a turmoil.
There's
too many conflicting things coming in, and it's like you're trying to process this all in your head, and at the same time you're trying, people, to take care of yourself.
Yes.
And it's not that you can't. It's not that easy.
Nope, it's not. It's not easy, and there are no supports for caregivers at all. I would get online, look at these tip sheets, and I would laugh. Access family and friends to watch your loved one. Make sure you look into respite care, adult daycare. And I'm going, $67 a day.
Right,
I moved to a new state. I don't have friends. I have no family. Like, what are you talking about, right? And then it's always coming back on the caregiver to do. You have to go find your own resource. Go find it on top of caregiver duties, on top of working, on top of processing, on top of, advocating. It's ridiculous. And so, coming back from the funeral, I was so stressed. I wasn't caring for myself. And I guess about a month later ended up in the emergency room. They thought I was having a heart attack. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. I am not having a heart attack. I'm too young. And they admitted me. They admitted me and went through the testing. I didn't have a heart attack. But based on extreme stress, it induced an arrhythmia in my heart. And I remember sitting in the hospital because while I was going through the testing, I still was calling Medicaid, advocating for my mother. And I was like, what? And I got angry. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to defy the odds. You won't provide support for caregivers, then I'm just going to go and fight for myself. And that's what I did. And I came out of that hospital, and I went to Walmart around the corner, and I bought a bike. And I started biking. I went to a holistic doctor, and they did food sensitivity testing on me, vitamin level testing. I was deficient in like 12 different vitamins. I was eating all the wrong foods. It was inflaming my body. I was like 30, 40 pounds overweight. I was like pre-diabetic. And I just started fighting. And rode my bike, got up to 70 miles a week, joined a gym, met someone my trainer who started teaching me meditation.
I was just going to talk to you about that.
Yeah. Started meditation. I'm not good at it. I'm trying.
Okay. No matter. Even if you do it for 1 minute, doesn't matter.
Yes.
If that 1 minute your brain isn't really, has a lot of stuff going on.
Yes.
So
really started surrounding myself with, I met a wonderful group of women at my gym who are now not just close friends, but my support group.
Really?
And I always
Good.
call it my untraditional support group, something that emerged out of my wanting to take care of myself. And the Alzheimer's, it's not like I go to the Alzheimer's Association and they're like, let's start a group fitness class with you and surround you with friends. They're not recommending that. And surround you with that support, but it's a positive support, right? It's uplifting. And so, I love it so much that I actually have done a whole career shift and became a certified health and wellness coach, and I just recently got my spin instructor certification. I lost 50 pounds and started my own health and wellness coaching LLC for caregivers, targeting caregivers. And I want to be able to give back how I did this through the support of my really good friends, my trainers, how I learned and access systems of care so that I could take care of myself, how I am able to get adult daycare or in-home care paid for so I can go to the gym, so I can go ride my bike.
Yeah, so if you take care of yourself too,
Yes.
Because if you're in a good spot, you're going to be able to be, not that you weren't a good caregiver, but it puts you in a different element, mind, when you're doing this.
Yeah, and one of the things, really that's been an epiphany, through all this is not just defining yourself as caregiver. It's a role, just like daughter, wife, husband, sister, brother, but it is not your identity. And I think that's very hard. I know it was very hard to separate myself from the role and the identity, that it is a role that I hold, but I am still a person with individual dreams, desires, and goals.
Right.
And I actually went on.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're still Heather.
I'm still Heather. I still exist, right?
And we all have these different functions. Yeah. Well, we have all these different caregiver, functions in our life, and that should not define you.
Yes. And so I went online and did an online vision board. It's an interactive vision board for myself, and this is where I want to be. This is what I desire in life. There's a shift. It looks different. It looks very different. It is not the same as it was 3 years ago, and it's okay. I think it's okay for some dreams to die, but you can pick up another dream.
Yeah.
You can pick up another dream. You're not dead.
You can. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, there's always ways to pick up another dream. Doesn't mean that, but you have to, people have to feel that and understand that that's possible.
Yeah,
well, you certainly are going to be an inspiration to many individuals that are dealing with the caring of a patient, a loved one. You certainly, it just amazes me, out of something so, just not, I don't even know the word I want to say. It's debilitating, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it brought you to this level.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
it's like, like the phoenix, how it always reinvents itself. It burns and it comes back again. But you come in a different way,
Yes. And caregivers are amazing. I have met the strongest, most resilient, high-functioning people I've ever met in my life in caregivers. Yeah. And I think that they don't give themselves enough credit, that they do not realize how special they are. And every time I meet a caregiver, I'm just amazed by who they are. They are so resilient, so strong, probably one of the strongest groups of people I've met in my life. And I just, wherever I can help and give back and give any little piece of what I've learned in just 3 years, I'm just 3 years in, I will. It's a new passion for me, yes.
It's definitely a passion. It's like for Betsy Wurzel. It's a passion for her also.
Yes.
To bring a voice, to have your voice out there and to tell your story, however it is. And for me, I always feel you're going to hit that one person you needed to touch,
Yes, absolutely.
And to see out of dismay, for 3 years, and to where it has brought you, you're a huge advocate and you're showing that things doesn't have to stay the same all the time. It can evolve.
It can evolve, and I always say this. There's two things that we all think about why something happens to you, and I say the one thing is that my mom's diagnosis saved my life. I was not paying attention to myself. I don't think I ever really was paying enough attention to myself. I was always a giver. And her diagnosis in the situation made me look at myself. In just Alzheimer's prevention in itself, caregivers of dementia loved ones are 7 times more at risk to get dementia because they hold all the risk factors. That in itself, if you don't want this disease, is enough to fight for yourself. And so I always say my mom's diagnosis saved my life, and I am healthier and better now than I was before I became a caregiver. And so this has just been such a huge impact on me personally that I want to be able to share that with as many other caregivers as possible, but also policymakers and systems of care. You know, every time now I go into a doctor's office with my mom and they don't even look at me or ask me how I'm doing, I write them an email to bring education and awareness. I am a caregiver. You have 2 patients sitting in your office, not 1. You need to speak to both and check on both of them because that is your next patient if we don't do prevention work. So whatever I can do as I'm learning through this process and going through, I'm trying to give back and bring awareness and educate.
Well, you're certainly doing that, really. I'm always amazed how wonderful things can turn for the better.
Yeah, for the better, right? Yes.
And because I always say to these individuals, there's obviously a lot of hope out there. There is.
Yes.
And you can make a difference, you know. You may have to lick your wounds for a while. You do, you know, I know I did. I licked. But then eventually you just say, no, I have to do something now with it.
Yes, absolutely, Jeannie. I mean, you can't. You go down and you feel, and you have to feel. That's human, right?
Okay.
But it's a choice. It's a choice what you want to do with those feelings. And so my choice was to pick myself up and fight for myself. We always, caregivers want to go, oh, we got to take care of ourselves because we have to be better caregivers. No, you got to take care of yourself for you.
For you, yes.
And
definitely for you. That's like
you.
when I always say to when if you don't have time, I say, you know, you could take 3 minutes, go into the bathroom, sit on the toilet seat, and try to clear. Just try it. It may not be easy in the beginning, but at least for 3 minutes, you're going to eliminate some stress. You are. Yes,
you are.
And so you don't think about that just 3 minutes. You know, like I had, go back now to this woman I had done a long time ago. She had issues with, I think it was, whatever it was, say drugs or alcohol or something like that. And she tried everything. So what she did is she had these little index cards, and she'd write something on it. And so 3, 6, 9, 3 times a day, 3 minutes times, averaged up to 9 minutes. And those 3 minutes piled into 9.
Yes.
For the day helped her immensely to help herself to get better and to become her own warrior. Yes. So you don't think of those little tiny minutes that they can do something for you. You know.
And what about I call them the untraditional community support. What are those people that are already around you, from your nail salon to your hairdresser to your gym? When you tell your story and you ask for help, you would not believe how many people will help you. Definitely. It has brought me so much faith back into the human race, you know. And I mean, people have just, one of my good friends, my business partner, Anessa, and my trainer, she developed a whole class for me around the schedule of when I could get to the gym. And she created a community of support for me at my gym based on when I could get there because I'm a caregiver. who does that? Like who? You would think, who does that? And it's just, and it's evolved, right? I wouldn't look to my gym to go get help being a caregiver. I have my hairdresser who has said, I will come to your house and do your hair. I will come to your house and do your mom's hair. If you cannot get out of the house or your caregiver did not show up, I will do it. I will come to you. There is support around you. It's just looking at it very differently. And it may just not, it may not be that caregiver, National Caregiver Organization or the National Alzheimer's Association or Foundation. It's around you locally. It's
the individual people you have in contact on a daily basis.
Yes, absolutely.
It's like when I go to my coffee shop. I love coffee shops to go for 5, not 5 minutes, probably an hour. But you get to meet people there, and the woman that runs it she's so wonderful. If you ever need anything, Jean, because there was a time a year when I was helping with my friend that had just passed away in January, and I would stop every once in a while, and she'd say, "How are you doing? I haven't seen you. What kind of iced tea do you want today? Go sit down, and I'll bring it to you." And it was just those moments. Those are the moments that mean a lot. That brings you that extra breath that you can move on. You can take that next step. But it's just that every caregiver or any individual, it's when they've said, I have to do something for me. It's that moment. They have that, like you said, that aha moment when they say, I need to do something for me. There has to be something else.
And the financial piece, it's very hard to access financial resources as a caregiver. It's devastating to your income. It is devastating. I mean, you can do as much as, I have a good job. I have retirement. I have benefits. I've had to pull early from my retirement to handle the cost of caring for my mom. I'm pulling from my future. I'm pulling annual leave. I'm pulling sick leave to take her to all her appointments. And, it's huge. The cost, if someone did a cost analysis on this, it would be unbelievable how much caregivers invest financially into caring for their loved ones. But what happened to me is I started telling my bills. My Honda, like I have a Honda and I lease it, and I was telling them what's going on. Well, they offered me a brand new car at a really good rate that I could afford. They said, what can you afford? Ask for help. Tell people what's happening in your life.
What happens... I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say people have a hard time asking because they've asked what they thought was their family would be there to help, or their friends that they had would be there. And so when they didn't get the help that they wanted, they're afraid to go out further and ask because they don't know me. How are they going to help me? Why would they help me? Type of deal. My family and my friends can't help me. So that's the feeling that I think some caregivers have.
Yes, me too. I had that. I think when you get to such a desperation and a point of like you can't do this on your own, and the organizations and the systems that you thought were going to be there for you are not there for you. You have to find other ways to survive it. Nobody is going to come and swoop in and say, I got you, caregiver. I'm just going to handle everything for you. We hear you. So you got to find ways, and those are just the ways I found in my walk.
They're wonderful because for doing this series for individuals to come and tell their story is because if they listen, they may be inspired by, something that you've said or that Betsy said or Marcy Burr said. It just, it might ignite something that they, realize that, yes, I had these feelings. I have these feelings and they have these feelings. And they worked around those feelings to make it a more positive situation for them and their husband and family, And I think that's what they have to hear, that there are things. Each worst person I've talked to has done numerous things to move beyond the feeling of being destitute and abandoned and lonely, to find something that would work for them And by
Oh,
doing
yeah.
that, they have shared it with other people. I found that
That's
numerous
awesome.
times. These women are just phenomenal.
Yes.
I call you women all warriors. I really do.
I know, aren't they? All
Yeah,
it's so
all warriors.
amazing.
They really are.
Mhm. They're
And out
amazing.
of something that is like you don't see any possible way that you're going to come out of it, somehow you do,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
you come on the other side with a
Yes.
different respect for yourself. You,
Yes.
because I always say, don't
Yeah.
forget you. Don't forget
Yeah.
you, because no one can do it if you're not there.
I know.
You.
I know.
And I don't
Yeah.
lose that piece of you. And they're coming to
Mhm.
that. They really are. Some of them,
Yeah.
they've been in this war for quite a while now, and they're
Mhm.
coming up with solutions. And I
Yep.
think that's what's necessary, is to show there are
Yes.
solutions.
Yes.
I hope out of this series everyone will find, such as what you're doing, Heather, that there is a positive way to
Mhm.
react to the situation and
Right.
make it much more, find that happy place for you.
Right. And
You know.
for me, it wasn't the support groups. For me, it wasn't I find being in the caregiver support groups, while I love caregivers, it's a dumping ground. And when you get in around and surround yourself with people who are struggling just as much as you are, at times you can leave those groups worse off than what you came in. And I really had to separate myself from the dumping ground. I'm already in a spot, right, where I'm like daily trying to deal with dementia and caregiving responsibilities, and how am I going to navigate my job, and try to explain to them what the responsibilities and burdens are of caregivers, which is another nightmare. But I had to find positive outlets, and they weren't in those traditional places. And I think it's okay to go find those positive people and places within your community that are going to strengthen you.
Right.
And so for me, it wasn't necessarily all those support. And it's the messaging, Jeannie. Like, what are we messaging? I see these messages of like, oh, caregiver, you have to take care of yourself. Or I've been to so many doctors' offices where they're just like, oh, there's nothing we can do for your mom. She's dying. She's just dying. And it's like you walk in, you get a diagnosis and a death certificate at the same time.
Right.
And redefining that. My mom and I have really redefined her world. And I said, you are not living by your diagnosis. You are going to live. And so we go on vacations, we go to the beach, we do karaoke car rides, and we're singing in the car, and we're taking her to mini golf. I'm not going to sit her down in a chair and go, oh, there's no hope and no cure, so just sit there until you die. It's not going to happen in my house anyway.
I know. I truly understand what you're saying, because when my other friend Phyllis, I used to, go and pick her up at the house, and I knew that she liked to go shopping, so I'd take her shopping, and then I knew she loved ice cream, and she probably shouldn't have had it, but I would take her for ice cream. I would take her out. Her and Peter and I would take her to the beach. And then we found this beach we used to go to down here in Massachusetts, Nantasket, and they have these wheelchairs. I was phenomenal. I was so happy to find it, that you can bring them into the water.
Wow.
It was phenomenal. So
that's
amazing. So I said, oh, my God, Peter, the man told me about this wheelchair. And so we went up and we asked him about it. And he goes, oh, yeah, we have that kind of a wheelchair here, and it's a little tough getting over the stones. He said, but, it's fine, because you can bring them right into the water in a wheelchair. It was phenomenal, Heather.
That is amazing. That is amazing.
So it was fun for us. It was fun for us, because now I see, my friend's there, and she's at the beach, and she loves it. So that's some of the things. But at the end, it was difficult to do some things with her. Really was very difficult. But for a while, we did take her, and she, she liked to, when she went to the elder care area, where she loved to, because she used to love to cook, and they let her in the kitchen, and she would just sit at a table, and, she would, I don't know, maybe they were making her think that she was buttering toast or something like that. And that was fun to her, So those are the different things you can do, I mean, they still, they can, if they love the beach, they love the park. That's what we did,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's marvelous.
And I mean, you just modify. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You just work around it.
Yep.
Is
you
it
work
easy all the time? No, not always.
Oh,
but,
no.
But she had a good, but you know what? She had a good time, and I did, and her husband did. We really, and then, for her, she loved music, so we played a lot of music for her.
Yes, my mom too. I think it's really good. Huh?
Yes, I'm going to say that she also liked to color, and the coloring book, loved it.
Oh, so, yes, my mom too. Yes, my mom too. I think it's a mind shift of stop looking at what they can't do anymore and look at what they still can do.
Yeah, give them what they can do.
Foster that.
Really?
Yeah.
Give them what they can do.
Yeah.
And let them try to make some decisions. Is it wise all the time? Who knows? But you know what? You just try it. And it makes for a lighter atmosphere in the home, I thought.
Yes.
But I think what you're doing Heather, is just absolutely phenomenal to help these caregivers.
You.
And what's the name of your business?
So it's my partner in our business, my partner Nessa Mason, but it's Volution Wellness. And we just launched it a couple months ago, and, we're working on the website, and we're going to be doing a lot of it's going to be a lot of coaching online for caregivers, a lot of resources. Everything that I've learned, I'm going to try to translate onto the website. I want to do webinars teaching about Medicaid, teaching about how to access systems of care, and we're going to do some health coaching and really just tailor it to caregivers for one piece of the business. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to their needs. I think the Medicare and the Medicaid would be phenomenal, because I was talking to someone that is coming on the show, and her mother was denied Medicaid. And I think it was she had, I don't know whether it was $100 above the required amount or something.
I said, it's ridiculous. It's a calculation thing. But, one thing I did learn through this process, just because you're denied does not mean you can't get it.
You
so
have
you
to
keep fighting for it.
Yeah, you keep fighting. Yeah.
Yes, you keep fighting and go up the chain.
Definitely go up the chain. I know I don't want to hold you. It was so interesting. I hope I haven't burdened your job there where you are, Heather. I'm sorry.
No, you are fine. No, you are fine. This has been wonderful.
It was really good to speak, and I would, if any time you want to come back and maybe, I don't know, give something off to the individual, even if it's just 15 minutes, I'd be more than happy to have you back, Heather, really.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, if you get any requests to learn more about Medicaid or Medicare or whatever, I can do just something on that. So whatever you need, you just let me know.
Okay. I have your website. Not your website, I'm sorry. I have your email address.
Yes.
Yeah, I do. I have that. Email. I can always contact you.
Yeah.
But I'll send you a copy of this if you want. And I also do. I do the audio, but I also do a blog. I put a little blurb, like a little paragraph about what the show is about. It's an extra thing I do, and I put the audio there too. And then if anyone needs to contact you, I always say to everyone, I put it out there. I can't guarantee, people listen, but sometimes they don't want to be involved. But as long as they're listening, that's all that matters to me, because I'm looking for that one person.
Yes, that's amazing, and I definitely am going to share. I have that blog page, and I try to keep that up with my experiences as I go, but I can definitely share the stories you've been posting. Yeah.
If you want me to share your blog, you send it to me, and I'll share it for you.
Okay.
I mean, that's how it works. I think that's how I always feel how it works. But the sharing of it, and then and then. Who knows where it leads you? You have no idea once you're on this road. Sometimes the road goes one way, You just never know.
Yes, it's true. It's true.
Yes, well, thank you, Heather. I don't know how to thank you very much for coming
on.
I just want, what I usually ask everyone at the end is do you have any words of wisdom or suggestions to the listening audience?
Mm-hmm. I think self-reflection and find your worth and value. And you are valuable. And you deserve the best as a caregiver. You deserve the best. So whatever that looks like and whatever you can access, fight for it, because you're worth it.
Oh, thank you, Heather. Thank you very much. Again, I wanted to thank Heather for being on the radio show today and talking about her experience with her and her mother, Pat, and their little journey that they went on, and how they've made a difference to each other, and hopefully they'll make a difference in your life too. Thank you. This is again Jeanne-White from Social Connections on Passionate World Radio. I want wish everyone a good Labor Day weekend. I cannot believe it's now going to be September tomorrow, and before you know it, I'll be talking about Thanksgiving and Christmas. Well, everyone, thank you again. I hope everyone has a good holiday, and I'll see you on the radio next week. Thank you. This is Jeanne-White from Social Connections on Passionate World Radio. Thank you.